I still can't quite believe what I saw that day. Flying helicopters in the Alaska wilderness for 15 years, you think you've seen everything. Bears, wolves, moose, eagles swooping so close you can see their eyes through the windshield. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened last summer near an unnamed lake about 60 miles northwest of Fairbanks. It was late June, one of those perfect Alaska days where the sun barely dips below the horizon and everything glows gold. I was doing a routine supply run to a remote ranger station, flying low over dense forest like I always do. The route takes me over some of the most untouched wilderness left in North America. Miles and miles of nothing but trees, lakes, and mountains. No roads, no people, no cell towers, just nature the way it looked 1,000 years ago. I was cruising at about 500 feet, following a chain of small lakes that I use as landmarks. The helicopter was humming smooth, fuel gauge looking good, weather clear as crystal. Just another Tuesday for me. Then I spotted movement in a clearing below, maybe a quarter mile ahead. At first I thought it was a couple of bears, which is common enough up here. But something about the movement caught my attention. It wasn't quite right for bears, too upright, too deliberate. I banked left and circled back, dropping down to about 300 feet for a better look. That's when I realized these weren't bears at all. In the clearing below, I saw two figures. One massive, maybe 7 or 8 feet tall, covered in dark brown fur. The other much smaller, maybe 3 feet, same coloring. The larger one was crouched down next to the smaller one, and I swear to you, it looked exactly like a parent teaching a child. My first thought was that someone was filming a movie or something. Had to be people in costumes, right? But there was no film crew, no equipment, no vehicles anywhere in sight, and we were 60 miles from the nearest town. Nobody comes out here for fun. The terrain is too rough, too remote. Whatever I was looking at, it wasn't a movie production. I hovered there, maybe 200 yards away, just watching through the windshield. The larger figure was gathering berries from a patch of bushes, picking them carefully and showing the smaller one which ones to choose. The little one would reach up, grab a berry, and the big one would either nod or shake its head. Teaching moment, clear as day. Then the little one started tumbling around in the tall grass, playing, and the big one would gently pull it back, almost like saying, "Stay close, pay attention." I watched this teaching session for maybe 10 minutes, completely absorbed. The mother would select a berry, hold it up for the infant to see, let the infant smell it, then either eat it or toss it aside. The infant was learning to identify ripe fruit by color, by scent, by the mother's reactions. Complex learning happening right before my eyes. And the patience the mother showed was remarkable. When the infant grabbed the wrong berry, she didn't scold or punish, just redirected, showed the right one again, waited for understanding to dawn. The infant's attention span was exactly what you'd expect from a young child. Focused for a minute or two, then distracted by a butterfly or interesting rock or his own feet. Each time it wandered, the mother would make a soft sound and gesture it back to the lesson. The infant would return, try to focus again, inevitably get distracted again. The whole cycle repeated over and over, and the mother never seemed frustrated, just patient, persistent, determined to teach these survival skills. The whole scene was so tender, so gentle, that I just sat there mesmerized. I'd heard the stories, of course. Every pilot in Alaska has heard about Bigfoot sightings. We usually laugh them off over beers, chalk it up to people seeing bears or shadows or whatever. But watching this unfold below me, I understood. This wasn't a bear. This wasn't a person in a suit. This was something else entirely. The little one kept trying to wander off, and every time it did, the big one would huff and gesture it back. Patient, like any parent with an energetic kid. At one point, the little one fell down, and the big one immediately bent over, checking on it, helping it up. I'm sitting there in my helicopter, hands on the controls, just staring. My rational brain was screaming that this couldn't be real, but my eyes were telling me something different. I considered landing right there to get a better look, but something stopped me. These were clearly wild creatures, and I was intruding on a private moment. A mother teaching her child to find food to survive. Landing would have been like barging into someone's home uninvited, so I just hovered there, drinking in every detail. The way they moved, upright, but with a rolling gait. The way the mother would crouch down to the child's level. The way the child mimicked her movements, learning. Then everything changed in an instant. Movement at the tree line caught my eye. A massive grizzly, probably 800 pounds, came crashing out of the forest into the clearing. Even from the helicopter, I could see this was a big male, thick-shouldered and moving with purpose. Bears and Bigfoot probably cross paths all the time up here, but something about this felt different. The bear's body language was aggressive, predatory. The mother Bigfoot sensed the danger immediately. Her whole posture changed, stiffening, alert. She turned toward the little one and made a sharp gesture. The little one looked confused for a second, then the mother pushed it hard toward the opposite tree line. The little one stumbled, caught itself, and ran. Not the playful tumbling from before, but real running, terrified running. It disappeared into the trees in seconds. The bear had spotted the little one moving, and its head swiveled to track the motion. For a moment, I thought it was going to chase after the infant, but the mother Bigfoot stepped directly into its line of sight, blocking the path, positioning herself between the bear and where her child had vanished. The message was clear as words. You want my baby, you go through me first. The bear seemed to consider its options for about 3 seconds. Then it charged, not at where the little one had fled, but straight at the mother. Maybe it decided she was the bigger threat. Maybe it was just angry at being challenged. Either way, 800 pounds of grizzly came thundering across that clearing at full speed. The mother didn't run. She planted her feet and met the charge head on. They collided with a sound I could hear even over the helicopter rotors. A meaty thud that made me wince. Then they were locked together, a blur of fur and claws and raw power. I wanted to help, wanted to do something, but I was 100 feet up in the air and the fight was happening too fast. The sounds carried up to me, roaring, snarling, impact after impact. The mother was bigger than the bear, taller at least, but the grizzly had all that compact muscle and those terrible claws. They rolled across the clearing, tearing up earth and grass. At one point, the bear got on top and I thought that was it, fight over. But the mother twisted somehow, threw the bear off, surged back to her feet. Then, as suddenly as it started, it was over. The bear stumbled backward, shook its head like it was dazed. The mother Bigfoot was still standing, swaying but upright. Blood matted the fur on her shoulder and side. The bear looked at her, looked at the tree line where the infant had vanished, and seemed to make a calculation. This wasn't worth it. Whatever prey drive had started this, it wasn't worth dying for. The bear turned and limped back toward the forest, disappearing into the trees. The mother Bigfoot stood there for a moment, breathing hard. I could see her shoulders heaving even from the helicopter. Then she took a few steps toward where her child had run, and her legs gave out. She caught herself against a tree trunk, slid down to a sitting position. Her head sagged forward. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the injuries were catching up. I didn't think, I just reacted. My hand was on the stick, banking the helicopter toward a clearing about 200 yards away before my brain caught up with what I was doing. This creature, this Bigfoot, this mother who had just fought off a grizzly to save her child, was bleeding out down there. and I had a first aid kit in the back. It wasn't much, designed for treating minor human injuries, but it was something. The landing was rough. I was shaking so hard I nearly put a skid through a rotten log. Got the helicopter stable, killed the engine, sat there for 10 seconds trying to process what I was about to do. Walk up to a wounded Bigfoot, offer first aid to a cryptid, to something that wasn't supposed to exist. My hand was on the door handle when common sense kicked in. What if she attacked me? What if she saw me as another threat? I'd just watched her fight a grizzly bear to a standstill. She could tear me apart without even trying. But then I thought about the way she'd been teaching her infant, the gentle patience, and I thought about the blood soaking into her fur. She needed help. So I grabbed the first aid kit from behind my seat, opened the door, and climbed out. The walk through the forest to the clearing felt like it took an hour. Really, it was maybe 5 minutes. I made noise as I went, snapping twigs, scuffing my boots, letting her hear me coming. The last thing I wanted was to startle her. When I broke through the tree line into the clearing, she was still sitting against the tree, but her head was up and she was watching me. I stopped about 20 feet away. Her eyes were brown, deep brown, and so intelligent it was unsettling. Not animal eyes, not human either, but something in between. She was studying me the same way I was studying her, trying to figure out if I was a threat. Blood was running down her shoulder, matting the fur on her side. The gash on her shoulder looked deep, ragged from the bear's claws. I raised my hand slowly, showing I wasn't holding a weapon. Then I set the first aid kit on the ground between us and took a step back. She watched every movement with those brown eyes, muscles tensed like she was ready to run or fight despite the injuries. I took another step back, giving her space. She looked at the kit, then at me, then back at the kit. I pointed at the kit, then at her shoulder, trying to mime what I wanted to do. Help, bandage, stop the bleeding. She tilted her head, and I swear I saw understanding in her expression. Then she did something that made my heart skip. She nodded, just a slight dip of her head, but it was unmistakable. Permission. She was giving me permission to approach. I took one step forward. She didn't move. Another step. Still nothing. I kept going until I was close enough to touch her, maybe 3 feet away, then slowly knelt down. Up close, she was even more impressive. Easily 7 feet tall, even sitting down, shoulders broader than any human's. Her fur was coarse but clean, and underneath I could see muscles rippling with each breath. The wound on her shoulder was worse than I'd thought. The bear had laid her open pretty good, a claw rake that cut through fur and skin down to the muscle beneath. My hands were shaking as I opened the first aid kit. The sound of the plastic clasps seemed loud in the quiet clearing. She watched but didn't flinch. I pulled out antiseptic wipes first, tore open a package. The chemical smell made her nose wrinkle and she leaned back slightly, but she didn't pull away. I reached out slowly, giving her every chance to stop me, and touched the wipe to the edge of her wound. She winced. A low rumble started in her chest, almost like a growl, but not quite threatening. More like the sound you make when something hurts, but you're trying to tough it out. I kept working, cleaning around the wound as gently as I could. The antiseptic wipes turned red almost immediately. I went through 6 of them, cleaning away blood and dirt and bits of bark that had gotten into the gash during the fight. Her eyes never left my face. I could feel her watching me, evaluating. Was this human going to hurt her? Could she trust me? I talked to her while I worked, keeping my voice low and calm. Didn't matter what I said, just the tone. Same voice I'd use with a spooked horse or a frightened dog. Easy now, just trying to help. Almost done, that kind of thing. The wound was clean enough. I squeezed antibiotic ointment onto my fingers and spread it along the gash. She watched the tube with what I can only describe as curiosity, tracking it from the kit to her shoulder, learning, seeing how this worked. When I pulled out the gauze and started unrolling it, she actually shifted her position slightly, lifting her arm to give me better access to wrap around her shoulder. That cooperation hit me hard. She understood what I was doing, understood that the bandage needed to go around her shoulder and under her arm. She was helping me help her. I wrapped the gauze as tight as I dared, trying to keep pressure on the wound without cutting off circulation. She tolerated it all without complaint, just that low rumble when I pulled the bandage particularly tight. I secured the bandage with medical tape, then sat back to check my work. Not bad for field medicine on a Bigfoot. The white gauze stood out stark against her brown fur. She looked down at it, touched it gently with one massive hand, then looked back at me. Something passed between us in that moment, some kind of understanding, some recognition that we'd both just crossed a line neither of us expected to cross. There were other wounds, scratches on her forearm where the bear had swiped at her, another gash across her rib cage, shallower than the shoulder wound but still bleeding. I treated each one while she sat patiently watching my hands work. The whole time I kept expecting her to decide she had had enough, to push me away or get up and leave, but she stayed, letting me finish. When I'd bandaged the last cut, I closed the first aid kit and sat back on my heels. She met my eyes, and I saw something in that gaze. Gratitude, maybe. Recognition, definitely. She knew I'd helped her, knew I could have hurt her and didn't. In that moment, I understood that she wasn't some mindless animal. She was intelligent, aware, capable of judgment and emotion and decision-making. Rustling in the bushes made both of us turn our heads. Something small was moving at the edge of the clearing, staying hidden in the undergrowth. The mother made a soft huffing sound, almost like a cough, but gentler, reassuring. The rustling stopped for a moment. Then a small face peeked out from behind a tree trunk. The infant. It had been hiding there the whole time, watching. Now it was trying to decide if it was safe to come out. The mother huffed again, more insistent this time. "Come here, it's okay." The infant took a tentative step into the clearing, then another. It kept its eyes locked on me, this strange creature that had done something to its mother. Fear and curiosity warred on its small face. I stayed perfectly still, barely breathing. The infant crept forward inch by inch, ready to bolt at any moment. When it finally reached its mother's side, it pressed against her uninjured side, tiny hands gripping her fur. The mother wrapped an arm around it, pulling it close, protective instinct clear in every movement. The infant buried its face in her fur for a moment, seeking comfort, then peeked out at me. Up close, the infant looked maybe 3 years old if it had been human. About 3 feet tall, same dark brown fur as its mother, but fluffier, softer. Its face was more human than I expected. Round eyes, small nose, mouth that could have belonged to a child if not for the slight muzzle. Those eyes were bright with intelligence and something else. Curiosity starting to overcome fear. The mother seemed relaxed now, which apparently told the infant that I was safe. It peered at me with growing boldness, taking in every detail. My clothes, my face, my hands. I smiled gently and very slowly extended my hand toward it, palm up, non-threatening. The infant looked at my hand like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. One small finger reached out and touched my palm. Just the lightest touch. Testing. I felt the warmth of its skin through the fur, the softness of that tiny fingertip. The infant jerked its hand back immediately, startled by the contact. by the reality of touching this strange creature. Then curiosity won, and it reached out again, this time running its finger along my palm, exploring the texture. The infant grew braver by the second. It touched my wrist, my jacket sleeve, the zipper on my jacket. The zipper particularly fascinated it. It pulled the zipper up an inch, then down, then up again. The small mechanical noise made it jump the first time, but then it started giggling. Honest to God giggling, a sound like wind chimes mixed with birdsong. The mother made a huffing sound that I swear was laughter. I found myself laughing too. Here I was, sitting in an Alaska clearing with a Bigfoot mother and her infant, watching the little one play with my zipper like any curious kid would. The absurdity and wonder of it hit me all at once. The infant looked back and forth between me and its mother, confused but pleased that we were both making happy sounds. The mother reached over and straightened the bandage on her shoulder, adjusting it slightly. The movement was so human, so practical and purposeful. She examined my work, touched the tape holding it in place, seemed satisfied. Then she looked at me and touched the bandage before placing her hand over her chest. The message was clear. Thank you. The infant lost interest in my zipper and noticed the first aid kit sitting nearby. It crawled over and started pulling items out one by one. Roll of gauze, package of Band-Aids, tube of ointment. Each item got a careful examination before being set aside. The mother watched but didn't stop the exploration. She knew her child learned by touching, by investigating, by experiencing. The infant held up the roll of gauze and looked at me questioningly. I took it gently, showed how it unrolled, then rolled it back up. The infant watched intently, then took the gauze back and tried to copy my movements. First attempt was clumsy, the gauze unrolling all over the ground. The mother made a soft sound and the infant tried again, this time getting it partly rolled before it fell apart. Third try was the charm. The infant got the gauze rolled up, not perfectly but close enough, and looked absolutely thrilled with itself. The infant showed its accomplishment to the mother, who touched its head affectionately. Approval, pride, love, all there in that simple gesture. I felt my throat tighten watching them. This wasn't a creature and its offspring. This was a mother and child with all the complexity and emotion that implied. They had relationships, feelings, family bonds. Everything we think makes us human, they had too. The mother shifted her position, wincing slightly as the movement pulled at her wounds. Then she did something that stunned me. She gestured to the ground next to her. An invitation. Sit with us. I glanced at the infant, who had now discovered my watch and was listening to it tick. Then I looked back at the mother. She gestured again, more insistent. I moved slowly, sitting cross-legged about 2 feet from her, close enough to talk quietly, far enough to not feel threatening. The infant immediately crawled into my lap, completely fearless now, and went back to examining my watch. Its weight was solid and warm, maybe 40 pounds. The mother watched this interaction with what I can only describe as amused tolerance. Her child was sitting on a human's lap, and she was okay with it. The sun was getting lower in the sky, afternoon sliding toward evening. I knew I should leave soon, get back to the helicopter before dark, but I couldn't make myself move. This moment felt sacred somehow, like I'd been given a glimpse into a hidden world that most people would never see. The infant was now trying to pull my watch off my wrist, tugging at the band with determined little grunts. I sat there thinking about everything I was witnessing. This wasn't a chance encounter with wildlife. This was a meeting between two intelligent species, both capable of thought and emotion and choice. The mother had chosen to trust me. I'd chosen to help her. Now we were sitting together like old friends, watching her child play, sharing a moment that transcended language and species. The weight of that realization settled over me like a blanket. Part of me wanted to document this somehow, take a photo, record something, have proof that this really happened. But I couldn't bring myself to pull out my phone or camera. That would have felt like a betrayal. These beings had trusted me with their presence, their vulnerability, their secret. Documenting it would have been turning that trust into evidence, reducing a sacred moment to data points and proof. So I just watched, committing every detail to memory instead. The mother reached over and gently redirected the infant's attention to something else. My radio clipped to my belt. The infant's eyes went wide. It reached for the radio with both hands, and I unclipped it carefully, handing it over. The infant turned it over and over, examining every angle. Then it found the dial and started turning it, making it click. That clicking sound became the most entertaining thing in the world. Click, click, click. The infant giggled every time. I showed the infant how the antenna extended and retracted, pulled it out, pushed it in, pulled it out again. The infant watched with laser focus, then took over, extending and retracting the antenna over and over. Then it found a stick on the ground and started pretending the stick was a radio, holding it up and extending an imaginary antenna. Imitation, imagination, play. All the markers of intelligence. The mother watched her child play with an expression I recognized from every parent's face. A mix of love, amusement, and that particular patience that comes from watching a kid be endlessly fascinated by something simple. She caught me watching, and our eyes met. For a long moment, we just looked at each other, two parents sharing a moment of understanding that crossed species lines. The mother winced again and adjusted her position against the tree. The fight with the bear was catching up to her. Adrenaline was wearing off and the pain was setting in. I pulled my water bottle from my jacket pocket, unscrewed the cap. The hiss of the seal breaking made her ears perk up. I offered the bottle to her. She took it carefully, examining the plastic bottle with curiosity. Sniffed the opening, then tipped it back and drank. She got it on the first try, no fumbling, no confusion, just understood immediately how the bottle worked. She drank half of it, then lowered the bottle and looked at me. Then she very carefully screwed the cap back on and handed it back. The care she took with that simple action said everything. She understood ownership, understood that this was mine and she was borrowing it. The infant saw its mother drinking and immediately wanted water too. Made a little whining sound and reached for the bottle. The mother took the bottle back from me, opened it again, and helped the infant drink. Held the bottle steady, tilted it at the right angle, made sure the infant didn't spill. Parenting skills on full display. When the infant finished, the mother wiped its mouth with the back of her hand. Such an ordinary, everyday gesture, such a human thing to do. I watched how the mother guided the infant, taught it, protected it. Every movement was deliberate, purposeful, intelligent. She wasn't operating on instinct alone. She was making decisions, weighing options, problem solving. When the infant started to wander toward the tree line, the mother made a soft sound and it came back immediately. Discipline, boundaries, all taught without words, but clearly understood. The mother caught me staring and held my gaze. In her eyes, I saw depth I wasn't prepared for, wisdom, experience, maybe sadness too. The weight of living hidden, of keeping her child safe from a world that didn't believe they existed. She had to hide from humans, teach her infant to hide, always be alert for danger. What a burden to carry. Yet here she was, trusting me, letting her guard down enough to rest, to let her child play with a human. That trust felt heavy, like a responsibility I hadn't asked for but couldn't refuse. I understood in that moment that I could never tell anyone about this. Not my friends, not other pilots, not anybody. These beings stayed hidden because humans would destroy them if given the chance. Hunt them, capture them, turn them into circus attractions or lab specimens. The infant was getting sleepy. I could see it in the way its movements slowed, the way it leaned more heavily against its mother. It curled up against her uninjured side, tiny hands still gripping her fur. The mother stroked the infant's head with long, soothing motions. Then she started humming. Not a song exactly, but a low, melodic sound. A lullaby without words. The infant's eyes drifted closed. I sat there frozen, barely breathing, watching the scene unfold. A mother singing her child to sleep. The most universal thing in the world. And I was witnessing it in the most unlikely circumstances. The humming continued for several minutes, the mother's chest rising and falling with each note. The infant's breathing deepened, evened out, asleep. The mother looked up at the darkening sky, then at me. Her expression changed, became more serious. She pointed to the forest, then to me, then to the sky. The message was clear. You need to leave before it gets dark. I nodded, understanding. She was right. Flying a helicopter at night over unfamiliar terrain was dangerous, and I was already pushing my luck on fuel. I started to gather up the remaining medical supplies, but the mother reached out and touched my arm, stopped me. She pointed to the bandages and tape, then to herself. She wanted me to leave the supplies with her. She understood what they were for, how to use them, had watched me treat her wounds closely enough to learn. I set the gauze, tape, and antiseptic tube beside her. She picked up the antiseptic tube, examining it more closely now. Looked at me with a question in her eyes. I mimed applying it, squeezing the tube and spreading the ointment on my arm. She nodded, got it, set the tube down carefully with the other supplies, learning from a single demonstration. Remarkable intelligence on display with every interaction. I stood up slowly, not wanting to wake the infant. The mother looked up at me, and for a moment we just stood there. Then she did something that made my eyes blur. She placed her hand over her heart, fingers spread wide. Then she extended that hand toward me, palm out. A gesture of gratitude, of respect, of goodbye. I mirrored the gesture, hand over my heart, then extended toward her. We held that position for several heartbeats, an understanding flowing between us without words. She had trusted me with something precious, her life, her child, her secrets, and I would honor that trust by keeping those secrets safe. Then she reached into the fur near her side, rummaging for something. When her hand emerged, she was holding a piece of obsidian, worked obsidian, shaped and polished, clearly ancient. An arrowhead or tool, black and gleaming in the fading light. She held it out to me. I took it reverently. The obsidian was cool and smooth against my palm, beautifully crafted. Where had it come from? How long had her people been here? The questions swirled, but I pushed them aside. This was a gift, a token of trust. I bowed my head in acceptance, and she mirrored the gesture. Acknowledgement between equals. I backed away slowly, maintaining eye contact as long as possible. The mother watched me go, the infant still sleeping peacefully against her side. When I reached the tree line, I paused, took one last look. She raised her hand in a wave, unmistakably human in its execution. I waved back, then turned and walked toward the helicopter. The walk back through the forest felt surreal. Had that really just happened? Had I really sat with a Bigfoot family, treated the mother's wounds, played with her child? My rational mind wanted to deny it, but the obsidian arrowhead in my pocket was solid proof. That and the empty medical supplies from my first aid kit. It had happened, all of it. I reached the helicopter just as the last rays of sunlight were painting the sky orange and purple, climbed in, secured the door, ran through my pre-flight checks mechanically. My hands moved on autopilot while my mind was still back in that clearing. The engine roared to life and I lifted off, rising above the canopy. I circled once over the clearing where I'd left them. The mother was standing now, the infant in her arms, both of them looking up at my helicopter. The mother raised her hand one more time, and even from 100 feet up, I could see the gesture clearly. Goodbye, thank you, go in peace. I dipped the helicopter's nose slightly in acknowledgement, then banked away toward home. The flight back to the supply station passed in a blur. My mind kept replaying everything. The way the mother had fought the bear with such ferocity. The trust in her eyes when she let me treat her wounds. The infant's curiosity and playfulness. The gestures that crossed the gap between our species. All of it felt like a dream, but the obsidian arrowhead in my pocket kept bringing me back to reality. I landed at the station and went through all the usual routines. Logged my flight time, fuel consumption, route, all the normal stuff. But nothing felt normal anymore. I'd crossed some invisible line and there was no going back. I'd seen something most people never would. Knew something that changed everything I thought I understood about the world. That night I couldn't sleep, kept thinking about them out there in the wilderness. Was the mother okay? Were her wounds healing? Was the infant safe? I'd given her medical supplies, but was it enough? Should I have done more? The questions circled endlessly until exhaustion finally pulled me under. 3 days later, I had another supply run scheduled. The route took me nowhere near that lake, but I deviated anyway. Told myself I just wanted to check on them, make sure the mother was recovering. Really, I think I needed to know it had been real. That I hadn't imagined the whole thing. I circled over the clearing where the fight had happened. The grass was trampled and torn, evidence of the battle. But no sign of the mother or infant. I felt a stab of disappointment, then relief. They were mobile. The mother could walk, could move around. That was good. That meant the wounds weren't as bad as I'd feared. I was about to bank away when movement caught my eye. Different clearing, maybe a quarter mile from the first one. 2 figures. I dropped lower, heart pounding. It was them. The mother was gathering plants, moving slowly but steadily. The infant was playing nearby, tumbling in the grass. Both alive, both okay. The mother heard the helicopter and looked up. Shielded her eyes from the sun with one hand. For a moment she just stood there watching. Then she raised both arms and crossed them over her chest. A new gesture, one I hadn't seen before. But the intent was clear. I see you. I remember you. We're okay. The infant looked up too and mimicked its mother, tiny arms crossing over its chest. I felt emotion tighten my throat. They developed a sign for me, a way to communicate across the distance. I dipped the helicopter's nose in response, our agreed-upon signal. The mother nodded and lowered her arms, then went back to gathering plants. Permission to leave. Reassurance that they were fine. I banked away and continued with my supply run, but my heart felt lighter than it had in days. They were healing, thriving, living their hidden lives. And I'd helped, even if just a little. I'd crossed the gap between our species and made a connection, brief, strange, but real. Over the following months, I adjusted my flight routes to pass near their territory whenever I could. Not every trip, never so often as to be intrusive, but maybe once a week I'd swing by, see if they were visible. Sometimes I spotted them, sometimes I didn't. When I did see them, the mother always acknowledged me. different gestures developed, hand over heart, arms raised above head, a wave, primitive sign language growing between us. The infant was growing fast. Each time I saw it, it seemed taller, more coordinated. By late summer, it was running more than tumbling, keeping up with its mother with increasing ease. It became bolder too. Sometimes when it heard the helicopter, it would run out into clearings and wave both arms enthusiastically. The mother allowed this, no longer worried that I posed a threat. One autumn day, I spotted them near a berry patch with a third figure, larger than the mother, massive shoulders, easily 8 feet tall. Male had to be, probably the father. He watched my helicopter with obvious wariness, body tense and ready to move. The mother seemed to be explaining something, gesturing between me and her shoulder where the scars from the bear attack would still be visible under the fur. The father studied the helicopter for a long moment. Then slowly he raised one hand, not as elaborate as the mother's gestures, just a simple acknowledgement, acceptance. He'd been told what I'd done, what I'd risked, and he was granting his approval. I felt something shift in that moment. I wasn't just accepted by the mother and child, I was accepted by the family. That acceptance felt like the greatest privilege of my life. These beings, these hidden people, had brought me into their circle of trust. Not because I'd forced my way in, but because I'd helped when I could have walked away. Because I'd kept their secret when I could have told the world. Trust earned through action, through respect, through keeping my word even when that word was never spoken. Late October brought the first serious cold. Snow was coming, and once it hit, I wouldn't be able to fly for months. The routes would be too dangerous, visibility too poor. I made one last trip to their territory before winter locked everything down. Needed to say goodbye properly, let them know I wouldn't be back until spring. I found them at their usual gathering spot, all 3 of them together, preparing for winter, stockpiling food, reinforcing whatever shelter they used. When they heard the helicopter, all 3 looked up. Then something I never expected. The mother started walking toward a clearing large enough to land in. The father and infant followed. An invitation. I landed carefully, killed the engine, climbed out. The family stood at the edge of the clearing, waiting. I walked toward them slowly, giving them every chance to change their minds, but they didn't retreat. The infant actually ran forward, no fear at all anymore. It grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the parents like an excited kid showing off a friend. The mother looked good, healthy, strong, moving without any sign of the injuries from months ago. She touched her shoulder where the worst wound had been, then touched my chest, remembering, thanking me again. The father stood back a bit, still protective, but he nodded his approval of my presence. The juvenile, as I now thought of the infant, wouldn't let go of my hand. It was chattering in that birdsong voice, excited about something. I tried to explain about winter, about not being able to fly, used gestures, drawings in the dirt, snowflakes, frozen ground, grounded helicopters. The mother understood first. She nodded and touched the trees around us, then made a motion like snow falling. She got it. Winter meant separation. She touched her chest, then pointed at the forest, then mimed sleeping. They'd hibernate or hunker down somewhere, wait out the cold. The juvenile didn't understand why this felt like goodbye. It kept trying to pull me toward the forest, wanting to show me something. The mother made a soft sound, and the juvenile reluctantly came back. Then it did something that nearly broke me. It hugged my leg, wrapping both arms around it and holding tight. A goodbye hug from a young Bigfoot. The parents allowed it, standing close but not interfering. I knelt down and hugged the juvenile back. It was bigger now, probably 60 pounds, strong and solid, but still young, still innocent. It pulled back and looked at me with those intelligent eyes, confused about why I was leaving. I touched its face gently, trying to convey that I'd be back, that this wasn't forever, just a season. I stood and faced the parents, placed my hand over my heart, then extended it toward them. Both parents mirrored the gesture simultaneously, a family unit acknowledging a friend. The father stepped forward, and for a moment I thought he might shake my hand. Instead, he placed one massive hand on my shoulder, gripped it firmly. Male bonding, wordless understanding. I'd protected his mate, helped his child, earned his respect. I backed toward the helicopter, all three of them following to the clearing's edge. Final waves exchanged, hands over hearts, gestures of respect and affection. I climbed into the helicopter, started the engine, lifted off. Circled once overhead and saw them standing together, watching me leave. A family, hidden people living secret lives in the vast Alaska wilderness. As I banked away toward home, I understood something profound. What I'd witnessed wasn't just Bigfoot, it was proof that intelligence, emotion, family bonds, love, all the things we think make us special, exist in forms we never imagined. They're not monsters or myths, they're people. Just different, hidden people trying to survive in a world that doesn't believe they exist. April finally brought warmth back to Alaska. Ice melted, rivers flowed again, and the first supply flights resumed. I headed straight for their territory, anxious after months of not knowing if they'd survive the winter. Alaska winters are brutal. Animals die, people die. Would I find them? Would they remember me? I searched the clearings I knew, finding nothing at first. Disappointment was setting in when I spotted something. Fresh tracks in the mud near a stream, enormous prints, multiple sizes. They'd survived. Relief flooded through me. I followed the tracks from the air and found them in a new area, different territory. Maybe they moved seasonally, following food sources. The family was there. Mother, father, and what was no longer an infant but a juvenile. It had grown over the winter, now nearly 5 feet tall, gangly like a teenager. The mother spotted the helicopter first and immediately started waving, both arms over her head. The father waved too, the wariness from before completely gone. The juvenile ran in circles, visible even from altitude, excitement obvious. I landed nearby, and the reunion was everything I'd hoped for. The juvenile tackled me the moment I stepped out of the helicopter, nearly knocking me down with its enthusiasm. Grown strong over the winter, muscles developing, but still young enough to be playful. The parent stood close, protective but relaxed. Their body language screamed contentment, joy even. They'd waited for me. That understanding hit me hard. Through the long winter, they'd remembered me, trusted I'd come back. And here I was, keeping a promise I'd never actually made, but they'd known I would keep. We spent an hour together, me observing, them going about their business, but including me in it, showing me plants they gathered, sounds they made, ways they communicated with each other. I learned more about them in that hour than in all our previous encounters combined. How they moved through the forest with barely a sound despite their size. How the mother taught the juvenile which plants were safe, which were medicine. How the father kept watch constantly, scanning for threats. How they communicated with a combination of sounds, gestures, and something else. Something almost like telepathy, anticipating each other's movements and needs without obvious signals. What struck me most was how human they truly were. Not in appearance, but in everything that mattered. They had family structure, division of labor, teaching and learning, play and work, caution and trust. They made plans, solved problems, remembered the past, and anticipated the future. Everything I'd been taught about what separates humans from animals was wrong. These beings had it all. I understood that day that my life had changed forever. I'd gained something most people never would. a connection to a hidden world, a secret family that lived between the spaces of human knowledge. And with that connection came responsibility to protect them, to keep their secret, to honor the trust they'd placed in me. The visits continued through that summer and the next. Seasons turned, years passed. I watched the juvenile grow into an adult, eventually leaving, to find its own territory the way young things do. I watched the parents age gracefully, the mother's fur silvering around her face. The trust between us deepened, communication improved, understanding grew. I never spoke of them to anyone, never hinted, never showed the obsidian arrowhead I carry always. Some knowledge is too precious to share, some bonds too sacred to expose. Every time someone at a bar tells a Bigfoot story, I smile and nod and let them think what they want. The truth is mine to keep, a secret held not just for me, but for them, for the family that trusted a human when they had every reason not to. My life now exists in two worlds, the human world of schedules and responsibilities and ordinary days, and the hidden world of forest clearings and wordless communication and beings that shouldn't exist but do. Each visit reminds me that there's so much we don't know, so much we haven't discovered. The world is bigger and stranger and more wonderful than we imagine. I think about that day a lot. The day I saw a Bigfoot mother fighting a bear to save her child. The choice I made to land, to help, to cross that invisible line between species. That choice opened a door to something remarkable, a friendship that transcends the normal boundaries of human experience, a trust given and earned, a secret kept. I know that eventually I'll get too old to fly. Eventually the visits will have to end. But the connection forged that day will last forever. Some encounters change you at a fundamental level, alter the way you see the world. Mine came in an Alaska clearing with a wounded mother, a frightened infant, and a choice to help despite fear and uncertainty. That choice taught me something vital. Humanity isn't defined by species or appearance, it's defined by compassion, intelligence, emotion, family bonds, love. And those things exist in forms we never expected, in beings we thought were myths. They're out there, living hidden lives, raising families, hoping to survive in a world that would destroy them if it knew they existed. The obsidian arrowhead stays in my pocket, a reminder of trust given and received. Every time I touch it, I remember that day. The mother's eyes as she let me treat her wounds, the infant's giggle as it played with my zipper, the father's hand on my shoulder, the gestures of respect and friendship that grew between us over years. Some people spend their whole lives looking for Bigfoot, trying to prove they exist. I found them by accident and learned something more important. It's not about proof or evidence or convincing the world. It's about respect, trust, and keeping faith with those who place their lives in your hands. The family that trusted me taught me that lesson better than anyone else ever could. I still fly those supply routes, still pass over their territory when I can, still watch for movement in forest clearings. Sometimes I spot them, sometimes I don't. But every time I'm up there, scanning the wilderness below, I feel grateful. Grateful for being chosen, for being trusted, for learning that the world holds more mystery and wonder than we ever imagined. So that's my story. Not about finding Bigfoot, but about finding family in the most unlikely place. About crossing the gap between species through simple kindness. About trust earned and kept, secrets held sacred, and the responsibility that comes with being let into a hidden world. I carry it with me always, this secret treasure, this knowledge that changes everything while changing nothing. They're out there right now, living their lives in the vast Alaska wilderness, mother, father, and whatever other family members they've welcomed into their group. Gathering food, teaching their young, watching the skies for a familiar helicopter. And when they see it, they'll wave, because somewhere in the wild places of the world, there exists a bond between human and Bigfoot, built on a single day when a choice was made to help instead of harm, to protect instead of expose. That's what I learned in that Alaska clearing. Humanity exists in unexpected forms. Trust can cross any boundary, and sometimes the most profound connections come from simply choosing to be kind when you could have looked away. The family taught me that, and in return, I'll keep their secret until the day I die. Some things are too precious to share, some bonds too sacred to break. For more interesting stories, check this out.